Good. So today I'll be assisting Leslie. So I will take care of the Q&A section of like the presentation. So you can ask your questions while the conference will go. And I will maybe interrupt Leslie during the presentation if it is relevant, or I'll wait at the end of it, depending on the nature of the questions. And so very briefly before we start, since I'm a business development guy, just to talk to you about Consortec, who we are, for those of you who don't know us already. So yeah, Consortec, we are the FME guys, quite well known, like we're safe software partners since 1999. We are the only platinum partner in North America, but also we are a bit more than that. So we are GIS consultant, and we are Esri partner as well. So anything, any like challenges or question you might have with regards to GIS and the whole Esri and FME environment, chances are we'll be able to help you out. So after this little speech, I'll leave the floor to you, Leslie.
Okay, great. So today's focus is an introduction to the idea of geospatial performance, with the idea of how can then we leverage automation, and you know, from a perspective of, let's say, using FME or something to improve an organization's geospatial performance. So the way I structured the presentation, we're going to do a small introduction to geospatial performance. Introduce like what is the role of integration and automation in that, how one might get started with a strategy to implement improvements, and some examples of a couple of projects that leveraged a mix of FME and Esri technology to automate some data and business processes and improve their geospatial performance. So, when we sort of took the angle of, geospatial performance, because we were looking at, what do? We help people automate data processes and ultimately helping organizations improve the performance of their organizations. But then I sort of wanted to start with, well, what does that mean? So what does geospatial performance mean to an organization? And I kind of like outlined it in like two different themes. So which I sort of show as like the two columns like on this slide. So what does that mean? Like, for instance, so we can define geospatial performance as bringing GIS data into the business. Okay, so how can bringing geography, or how can bring the location of something or things or spatial data, and bring like, how does bringing that to the table make a difference in different business lines? Because a lot of the time when we're providing maps or spatial analysis tools or spatial data, we're often doing it to help another business line within our organization either make better decisions, operate, do their operations more efficiently, or help them to meet compliance requirements, especially if we're in local government and we have different kinds of compliance requirements towards different levels of government, and in order to meet standards and service obligations, let's say. And so there's the idea of how can geography help solve operational needs and stuff in the business. And then there is, what is my GIS teams, or what is our ability as the GIS professionals in an organization to deliver those GIS products and services? So what is our ability to service the data, the tools, the maps, to these other business lines that can benefit from GIS data? So that can mean, what is our ability to integrate our data with other systems, choosing the right applications for the right business needs, and fitting into the overarching business process. And so then we'll look at how, how can we use, like, let's say, automation and different kinds of tools to try to improve our performance. So geospatial performance, we can think of it as a way for the GIS department to position itself as a strategic contributor to a better managed and run organization. So I just put that there as a way to say, okay, so, how, a lot of the time, again, like why we bring maps to the table or why we use maps is because they can be an integral part to, solving business problems or, operating better. So, it's basically our role to help the organization do that, whatever, organization that we're in. So Francois, I believe you wanted to put a poll out there.
Yes, exact. So just wanted to see where you are with regards to like the first, not the first, but like the two like avenues that Leslie described. So do you consider your department to be successful in bringing GIS data into the business units of your organization? So I'll leave you maybe 10, 15 seconds to vote. Okay, so I'm I see you can all see the results. I don't know, like Leslie, if you are surprised by the response. Personally, I am not.
I actually can't. I actually
You
can't
can see it.
see.
Okay, but I
No, I
assume
can't
since
because
you
I'm
are okay.
sharing my screen and I only have one.
Okay, like we have 76% of people that saying like yes, we can do more, and we have like 22% that are saying yes, absolutely, and a small percent, 4% that are saying that no, they're not like really successful. But like personally,
Okay.
I'm not surprised to see that like most people are in between. So yeah, they're doing it, but like it can be done better. So I think that's relevant to talk about like geospatial performance improvement in this case. And the
Okay.
second one, and there's also a second one, and it is to the second second area that you described. So like, do you consider your department delivers enough GIS product and services to other departments? And again, a bit like the other one, absolutely yes, yes, but we can do better, or no, not enough. Oh, wait, another 5 seconds. So still vote coming in. Okay, so this one is a bit similar, a bit more people that are saying no. So that may be a bit more problematic, at least for the like for today's audience. But still, like a large percent that are considering that they're doing a good job, but that can do more, and a small percentage that are absolutely agreeing on the statement.
All right. What, did you have any other poll questions,
No,
Francois, or did
no,
you?
not
No?
no,
Okay.
not for now.
For now. All right. Okay, so in the world of so when I think about like geospatial performance, what am I thinking about? So what are the challenges to that in recent years? So I always like to show this graphic that Safe Software puts out. This graphic has actually evolved over time. It used to be a list of very specific GIS formats going up into a line, and now we see this sort of like progression of number of formats, and sort of when over time they introduce different types of data. So when we talk about spatial data, we're not just talking about traditional vector GIS data necessarily. Like we see the introduction of point clouds, of BIM, integrating with data with a spatial component to it. And we see spatial data being used in other industries, like the gaming industry might use spatial data to build the basis for its worlds. We also see cities and stuff using and new GIS software kind of starting to leverage gaming technologies in order to create visualizations of spatial data and information. So we kind of see both worlds kind of using that sort of technology. And then we see like integration with, BI and indoor mapping and, real-time data consideration. So we see that the nature of the data has just gotten more complex over time. The amount of data has grown, and the amount of information we're trying to process and serve to our organization has grown in both complexity and volume over time. So we have all kinds of interesting and useful data, but there's more and more of it. So that has been sort of one of the challenges, I would say, over some of the challenges that we have over time, including like increasing numbers of technologies, like I said, that we can leverage to, for different kinds of analysis and bringing information in a different way. So this was one that I also put in my challenges slide. How long do you have to prepare a map today? So we make maps for all sorts of purposes, and I just was thinking when I was preparing this presentation, I was thinking back to back 20 years ago when I first started working in GIS, and we would spend maybe a week or two making like the perfect layout with the perfect map with the perfect labels everywhere. We would plot it on a piece of paper, on a plotter, and then lay it out on a table, and then, go through it and find, like places where it didn't look so good, and then go back to the drawing board, and we would refine this perfect map till we plotted, the map how we needed it. And then we would roll it up and put it in a tube and mail it to somebody who would then do, sort of like that, something like a fire chief whose job was then to say, oh yeah, okay, we cover this area and we cover that area. They would kind of draw it on that paper map and send it back. And then we would be, we would get it in the mail in the tube and unroll it and have to look at it and sort of reinterpret the information. And when I think about that, like to do a single map, the work it would take versus, the kind of information we put out today, again, it's become more challenging because we have more services that we offer out. We have more information to offer out, and the methodologies have definitely evolved over time. And so when we think about geospatial performance, we can kind of group it into these different pillars, right? So the main base components of what my sort of GIS environment contains, right? So we have, technologies. So technologies that are continually evolving. We have data, at the base of this is we have data, and we're using technologies to manage it, prepare it, to serve it out, to do analysis with it. And the quality of that data, or my ability to maintain that data, is going to impact the quality or my ability to serve as useful information into those other operations that need this information. And then we have skills, the skills of my team that might be changing over time, my team that has to keep up with the new technology. So you just kind of see how all the pillars kind of sort of influence each other. And then we have the processes, which are my operational processes. So that can be the processes that I have within my GIS group in terms of how do I prepare, and my processes for maintaining data, preparing data, serving data, creating new services. And then I have my processes, which are business processes that we fit into in the lines of business. So perhaps we're using, Survey 123 to capture data in the field from the road maintenance crew, but that information maybe needs to be integrated to another application. It might need to get integrated into a work order management system, which might not be a GIS-based tool, or perhaps some information needs to be captured and sent to the finance department. So how do I fit in to and evolve with other business processes? And then there's sort of the governance aspect, which is technology works a certain way, my data is structured a certain way, and governance is the rules of engagement. Is how do I use the technology? What are the rules for using the technology? So the things that the technology itself doesn't do, it's sort of the the understanding and the human rule set, and how do we operate the technology, the processes, the data, and the people and the roles and responsibilities in my team. So all of these facets, impact each other. So what is the role? So, in our line of business, so that was a very broad concept of geospatial performance. And so now if I look a little bit more specifically in terms of like what we've been doing for a long time, is what is the role of automation and integration in geospatial performance? So the objective is, to support the right data, the right information at the right time. Again, to service my different lines of, the different lines of business that need this information. So that the different lines of business that need the information, it might be compliance, or it might be an overall goal of, transparency. So, putting open data out might be about transparency and also making data available to other organizations that need it in an efficient way. It might be, employees that need the information to do their day-to-day job. It might be management that needs an overall view of the information. So I have to make sure the right information gets to where it needs to go. And I have to make sure that it's using the right technology and that my team has the right skills to do it, and, all the sort of facets of performance. So if we think about, what is, how do we approach, improving our geospatial performance? I'm going to start with a very broad view, but then I'll focus on the process part, because what we've been working in for a long time is really around, the processes, and either automating data processes or, inserting, our, data into other business processes. So I'll talk more specifically about that, but I'll start with a very broad view. So if I think about all of those, facets in this wheel here, the skills and the technology and the processes and the data and the governance aspect, if I'm starting very high level, I might, look at, what is the overarching business strategies of my organization. So if, transparency to clients is more important, then there might be a very big focus on open data. So there might be overarching organizational objectives, and I have to see what I need to do in order to help the organization meet those objectives. There might also be a GIS or IT team specific objectives, to modernize or to be more resilient to changing technology by being able to upgrade faster. There might be some business goals within, my GIS department or within the IT department that I might be in, that I might need to meet. And I can evaluate, what is my capacity to meet those goals using, with what I have in place with each of these pillars, with the existing skills I have, the technologies, the processes, the data, the governance, and that's where I can see what the gaps are in my ability to meet those business objectives, for instance. So that's a very broad view. And if I look at, on a more operational or tactical level, so if I take the facet of processes, let's say, because we do a lot of trying to automate processes. So if I think about the evolution of FME, it is at its base an ETL tool. And so the idea of being able to extract data, do stuff to it, and load it. But over time, this idea of being able to move data and retransform it and meet another business need with it, comes in the idea of automating that. So, and then the idea of automating that data manipulation or that movement is to improve the efficiency of processes. So if I want to look at that facet more operationally, so I have my strategies and my objectives, my business strategies, and then I need to put in operational goals and put in a tactical plan on how to actually implement that. So I'm going to think about it from the facet of automation, let's say, and how automation might help in that idea of geospatial performance. So I might want to start with, let's say, defining automation types in an organization to give a common framework. So this is sort of an exercise we do with clients sometimes. So what are the types of automation? And this just gives us a common language that we can then try to look for opportunities in and say, okay, we know where we can improve the performance with a certain type of automation in a certain context, let's say, list out the automation opportunities, a qualitative assessment. So assess them, but assess them, at a high level where we can sort of look and see where the opportunities really are. And then then from there we can do a prioritization, and then you get into the deeper assessment of a process. So then you're able to pick your key processes and drill down more. So at a high level, you need to be able to look at, okay, where are opportunities for improvement of performance? What am I going to, find a way to rank them, or, based on, what the opportunity might bring, and then work on implementing those ideas. So in that sort of getting started framework, so I might look at, what are, so the idea of, defining the types of automation and integration. So like I do find that it is helpful to sort of have a framework for what we consider automation. So, application native integration. So that is two applications that have an ability to communicate data or information between each other. So do I have that option available to me in the tools that I have? So that's often a first question I want to ask, right? Can I leverage web services? So is there a way I can leverage, web service APIs and leverage web services from one application to another? And then there's the idea of doing application to application integration. So this is one application doing something and another application being called in the back end. So where I might click, hey, there's a crack in the road here, or something, and it automatically might, have a chain of events in the back end linking different business organizations together. So the idea of application to application integration is a little bit different than the traditional scheduled tasks, because traditionally we might look at automation from the point of view of pulling all the data from one place and sending it to another, but application to application is often more transactional. It's more like one operation in one application leads to another in another application. And then we have our sort of more traditional scheduled tasks. So on a regular schedule, I want to pull data from one place and send to another. And then ad hoc, which I still consider part of automations, and this is where it's more of a self-serve scenario, where somebody needs some sort of data, and we automate the process of them being able to get that data when they need it. So sort of taking out a human middleman in the process. So I need to, make a request for this information based on this criteria, and I can automate the process of delivering that specific request. So these are different kinds of examples of how I might automate something. That does lead to different kinds of usage of FME server. So if I think in the FME context, a lot of the time, I need to sort of know what the possibilities are of how I might automate things. I might be automating, an application to application, or perhaps it's simply a scheduled task where once a day I move information from one system to another. So having that sort of framework of the capabilities of what automation is and what it means and what it could be helps me then apply it to specific use cases. So, and then my number 2 was list out the operations that GIS could benefit from automation or integration. So this is where we want to look for where are opportunities. So this usually is an exercise in reflecting on all the business processes that we have going on. So where are there repeatable tasks, a set of steps that we keep repeating? There's possibly some opportunity for automation there. Do I have disparate scripts here and there that are maybe nearing end of life? So maybe an old Python script on an old version, maybe I'm upgrading the data, or maybe some of the input systems have changed. Those scripts are ending life, and perhaps I want to build an FME type of automation in with a scheduled task and sort of centralize all of these kinds of processes. That might be a good moment to say, hey, we're gonna re-automate this process and have it in a more consolidated way. Where is GIS in the middle of other business processes? So let's say the work order management system, for instance, is being managed by an outside business application in public works, maybe being run by IT, but then the field work is being done using, Esri's field maps or Survey 123 or some sort of, GIS-centric map-based tool. So so even though the objective is going to be to create work orders, GIS is inserted into that process of decision making. So possibly there's room to automate that, because I wouldn't want people transcribing information in one application and then having to go into another application to transcribe exactly the same information. So where is there opportunity to automate between, where GIS plays a role in a larger process, for instance? Where would self-serve remove GIS from being a bottleneck? So that can be, am I repetitively preparing common data sets to deliver to outside organizations for compliance purposes, to other groups, to individuals based on data requests? If, is there an opportunity to do some automation there? And that might lead me to using, an app, a self-service, portal, or something where a user could go and self-serve access the data that they need. So that might be leveraging existing tools, but it also might be creating a data process to specifically deliver the data in the form that it's needed. And then, pulling data in or out of other systems or applications. Am I manually pulling data from one application, doing stuff to it, or am I manually preparing data to send into another application? Can those things be automated? So a lot of the time, if we go through the different business processes and tasks, we can see where things are repeatable and where there's an opportunity to, use the automations like an FME server, for instance, to create automated tasks and sort of, improve the performance of the organization. And then what we tend to do is we usually do sort of a qualitative assessment. So we list out the opportunities to do automation. So we've given a framework with a bit of a language, usually based on the type of automations, if we're doing this with FME, based on the type of automation FME offers. And then what we'll do is a qualitative assessment. So where, out of all those opportunities, which ones are good candidates? Well, we can't necessarily start by doing a deep analysis of all of them and spend, the hundreds of hours. We sort of have to do a high-level assessment and see where the opportunities are. So for instance, so usually what we do is we take the ideas, we define the process, the type of automation it's likely to be. From a technical level, based on a description of the process, we try to evaluate what would be the complexity in actually implementing this. Because, if you do something and you save 5 minutes a week, but it takes, hundreds of hours to develop that automation, it might not be the best bang for your buck. But if you, spend, 20 hours automating a process and you're saving somebody, 3-4 hours a week, that's a pretty significant, performance improvement. So, you want to evaluate the complexity of developing the process. And one of the questions that we always ask at this stage is the process well defined? And this is because sometimes the higher level need is there. We need to pull data from one system and send it to another, but it's unclear what needs to happen in that process. And so that doesn't mean it's no longer a candidate idea. It just means we have to do more process work before we try to think about actually implementing an automation. So that one is more a case of defining, okay, where are we at in the stage? Have we identified the process, and then we want to apply, developing the automation for it. And then what is the potential gain? So like I was saying before, are we, how much time are we saving? Are we doing this to meet a new business objective? Are we, is this a new service or a new requirement that we need to meet and we want to implement it as efficiently as possible? Are we going to save a lot of time? Is it a stopgap, meaning sometimes we have a short-term need and using a tool like FME might be useful because we can quickly develop a solution, but we know that within, let's say, a year or two, we have another system coming on board. It's just we don't want to develop a deep solution for something that might be temporary. So, we want to evaluate what the potential gain is as well. So sometimes, the potential gain is great. Like, for instance, if somebody drops a point in the field and says there's a problem here and a work order gets created automatically, there's a large potential gain in efficiency there. We don't have double entry of information and stuff like that. So we sort of evaluate the candidates, and then from there, we're sort of able to prioritize them. So the ones that bring, a lot of benefit, the ones that are good candidates for, does it also bring, value in building skills within the team and align with the business strategies and the business needs. This is where we usually do a priority. And one of the things I do like to point out is these type of lists or strategies, operational strategies. They need to, be sort of a living list, and they need to be able to adapt because systems all around are often changing. And then finally, and like my focus was more to talk about how to build, this strategy. At the end, you have to then take your processes and get more deeply into them and do a final sort of evaluation. Okay, what are the steps? How can we improve this process? And then work towards automating it. François, I believe you want to.
Yeah, this poll, so it will kind of end the this second part. So yeah, we discussed about the business objective, strategies, and technical plan. So we are curious to know which statement best describe the result of your GIS strategic planning. So to know if it brings notable benefits, brings some benefits, or it happens sometimes you just don't have time to do that type of work. I'll leave you another 10 seconds. So I'll share the results. So Leslie, you can't see it. So it's 44% are saying that it brings notable benefits. 33% are saying some benefits, and 22% who unfortunately don't have time to do that type of strategic planning. Which I'm not too surprised, because I know some GIS managers in GIS department, they're really stretched into operations.
All right. Okay, so the last section that I wanted to go over was just to bring some examples of where automation, using a mix of FME and Esri tools has helped different clients actually improve their geospatial performance. So the first one is a road patrol automation from a client. So what they needed to do was collect road patrol operations data to improve the legal litigation process. So behind this are business drivers, right? So they needed to improve their road maintenance operations and also be able to provide information to the legal department efficiently. So they leveraged a mix of existing tools. So they already had FME server technology, and Esri technology, and they decided to leverage their existing tools in order to meet those objectives of better operational management of their road patrols and being able to have that information available when needed. So the way that the things that they implemented in the solution, it was a mix of Esri, like I said, and FME tools. So quick capture, Esri's quick capture tool was used to collect the data in the field. So the road patrol people would collect information that way. And FME can schedule tasks. So on a scheduled basis, an automation and FME server will consolidate all that data and export it to Excel for managers in a format that they can consume easily. Then an Esri dashboard was developed in order to provide a more operational view to managers of the road maintenance data, and an FME automation was leveraged in order to be able to facilitate information being brought back to the legal department. So they were able to fill in a little bit of information, and based on that have access to results, the information that they needed. So by looking at each component of the process. So, there's a process around capturing information in the field. There's a process around managing the operations. There's a process around, feeding the right information to the legal department, and, applying the right kind of tools and automations between, these different steps allowed them to gain these efficiencies or gain this performance. So if I come back to the idea of, how did the solution improve geospatial performance? So I look at it in my two examples I did before. So the idea of bringing GIS data into the business, and then the ability to deliver GIS products and services. So, bringing GIS data into the business, so the field crew operations, were able to, be more efficient. So they can dispatch crews more efficiently. They can avoid printing paper maps and, redundant steps in order to create work orders, and, avoid duplicate entry in multiple systems. So by using maps and mapping data, they were able to help the field crews operate more efficiently. And for compliance reasons, they were able to provide the information using the apps and the automations in FME server. They are able to provide the legal department with the data they need in a litigation process. So capture the information they need for whatever dates or whatever operations or whatever information needed to be pulled out. So this allows the legal department to meet compliance to the auditor's recommendations in the city, which was to be able to track this kind of information and have it available when they need it. So this is how the business was able to improve, by using maps, and the ability of the GIS department, by using application and data integration, they're able to leverage their data in these different business lines more efficiently, and also they're able to service data in the format they need, automatically, without, having delays of, having to process data on the back end. So this allowed them to, leverage their existing technologies and improve their own performance at serving like these multiple departments with the same data, but in the form needed for the different business processes. Another example is somewhat similar. This is a different client who wanted to improve how they manage potholes in the city. So they wanted to be able to provide a citizen portal and map tools. So the objective was to provide a citizen portal and map tools to manage the potholes better. Pothole repair in the city better. The business drivers behind that were to gain an improvement in the pavement repair operations, improve their transparency to citizens, and operationally reduce the number of citizen phone calls to the admin people at the city. So what they used is, they had to implement a way to capture the location of potholes from both the citizens and their own field crews working in the field, to give tools to the public works managers to assign work, more efficiently. So a visual way or a map-based way to assign repair work and track the repair work. And they leveraged, again, automations in the form of scheduled tasks with FME. And, again, this was a mix of, Esri and FME technologies in order to make what is actually multiple separate systems into one seamless solution. So, they created a citizen-based, a citizen map. So, a citizen can go in and say, hey, there's a pothole here on my street, or wherever they've seen one. At the same time, they're using GPS with their field crews to capture both the location of potholes that the field crews observe, but also capture the locations that they've repaired the potholes as well. And they're using FME scheduled tasks to consolidate all the data on the back end, to consolidate the data based on the citizen map and the GPS captured map, to be able to provide back a map of where potholes have been repaired. and also where, you know, work is assigned. And then finally, an FME, another schedule for reporting purposes, where they're able to do that, meet that transparency requirement. You know, they're actually have scheduled tasks, you know, calculating the number of potholes per different neighborhood, so the number of potholes reported, the number of potholes repaired, and whether or not the road has been qualified as, you know, degraded, the quality of the pavement. So they're able to actually put out statistics onto their open data portal to provide that other level of transparency. So how did this solution help them improve their performance? So again, from the point of view of bringing the GIS data into their business, the field crews could operate more efficiently because the dispatch crew, the managers can dispatch crews based on, where the work needs to be. So based on a map. This actually also, provides the information that engineers need to help with their consolidated asset replacement plans. So this is to meet provincial compliance. Every several years, they have to redo an assessment of all the pavement infrastructure and all the underground infrastructure. And so this type of information goes into the pool of information the city's engineers will need at a later date. And the administrative department, so improving the operations of the administration department by offering citizens a map where they could visually choose, and say, hey, there's a pothole here. They were able to reduce the number of calls by 80% to the city, which, greatly improved their operations. And then the ability of the GIS department was to be able to, technically, in actual technical terms, the GPS capture by the field crews, the citizen map portal, those are different tools. The map being used by the public works managers, that's a different tool as well. And the statistics being calculated for the open data portal is also a different tool. So on the back end, the automations, and then there was a mix of FME automations and some Esri scripts as well. The automation on the back end makes this whole system look like one unique system, pothole management, but really the automations between each of the systems mean we don't have to copy information from one to another. The information is moving automatically on its own. And then the last example that I'll give, this one was a pipeline inspection tool. This one was done, this was a client that's actually a natural gas distributor, and they needed to develop, their objective was to develop a way to track field operations of pipeline inspections in real time. So the business drivers behind that was they needed to improve the tracking of the compliance-based work. So for compliance purposes, the entire network has to be inspected on an annual basis or semi-annual basis, depending on the type of pipelines and where they are. There are different actual rules for compliance. And they needed to improve the information feedback to work planners. So the planners need to have a real idea of where they're at in the actual field work in order to be able to reassign or increase resources in more real time, because before they had actually been using, again, paper maps to go out and track where they had done the work, and so information would take time to get back to the planners so that they could adjust more quickly to their field work. So the methodology is, again, they decide to leverage existing tools, but also implement. Then when they did this project, it was at the introduction of the tracker for ArcGIS product. So they actually had to make sort of a decision on were they going to go with a collector or were they going to go with tracker, because collector, collector was the original plan, but as tracker was brand new, there was a bit of uncertainty. They decided to go with tracker for ArcGIS, which ended up being the right solution for them at the time because it was more attuned to the type of data capture they needed to do. And then they used a mix of, again, FME and Esri technologies in order to build their solution. So they implemented Tracker for ArcGIS to track all the field work of the field crews. So as the crews drive the network with the leak detection tools, the breadcrumbs of where they've driven are captured automatically and sent to the geo event server. So there's like a constant capture of where they've been. Then there is the FME schedule. So FME, the automation side of this solution is built using FME server schedule. So these are actually rapid schedules that perform a spatial analysis on the back end. So every like 30 seconds or a minute, all the tracker points are captured and analyzed against the pipeline network to tag the pipes as having been inspected. So as long as we've driven the length of the pipe within a certain amount of distance, the pipe is considered inspected. So part of this project was to come up with an algorithm to decide, based on proximity, how to decide that that pipe had been driven. So that was part of the challenges of this project. And one of the challenges as well was to make sure when we're doing a real-time kind of capture, it can happen, like for instance, that the truck loses GPS signal for a little while, and so the information gets uploaded at a later time. So there's actually a series of cascading schedules. So there's the schedule every 30 seconds or every minute to give that near real-time picture, but there's also one that runs every hour to say, hey, if some data got missed because it only got uploaded later, we're going to go back and capture that information and bring it in. So the idea being able to sort of work with that sort of real time with the sort of complexities that real-time data can have. And then finally, another schedule is used, and this one is more of a daily schedule where it actually does a summation of all the pipe distances that have been driven. And that information is sent into reporting for SAP, because actually the planners that do the work use SAP as their main application. So an automation is taking the information from where the pipes got inspected, which ones were driven, and then calculation of how much distance got driven, so that the planners can adjust the work schedules and the plans, so they can know if they're falling behind or if they're ahead or where they're at in their operations. In basically a constant way. So this is just sort of an example of, like, you can see like which pipes that have been like tagged as driven versus not, for instance. So those three examples were meant to sort of show the idea of how are we able to improve geospatial performance. So I didn't have the sort of the last sort of business drivers slide for that one. It seems to be missing, but basically the idea being that they were able to improve greatly their field operations. Before, they were tracking where they had been on paper for an entire network of thousands of kilometers of pipe. It was actually pretty cumbersome to going to a place where they actually have a near real-time picture of where they've been. By using a mix of the right tools, so tools to track the location of the trucks in real time, and use automation to process that information and do that analysis on a regular basis. So, and then they were able to provide that information automatically to the users of SAP. So they're able to make the system automated and actually be able to meet their compliance standards and be able to actually track their progression. So before, like I said, they were using paper maps and old ways. By using GIS and better mapping tools, they were able to improve the field collection operations. So the idea being that in the end, the objective in that we wanted to bring was the idea that geospatial performance is like I said, like that idea of being able to bring maps and geography to business processes to ultimately improve them, improve the way the decisions are made, improve the information we have to make our decisions, maybe run some operations more efficiently. but also what is our capacity to deliver in a world where, you know, we can't take like a month to prepare a map perhaps on a perfect piece of paper like we used to. How are we able to make sure that we're efficiently delivering the right information, the right services, and looking at that sort of automation facet? So how can I leverage technologies like FME to, you know, provide automation to help that mapping data get to where it needs to be within maybe a business process? Or how can I help my department deliver more by automating processes that I can? So Francois, did you want to
Add something? Not really. I
yeah.
would like first of all to thank you for this like complete presentation. So it's now time if like the participants, if you have like questions or specific comments, it is time to use the Q&A section. So I see some thumbs up and also some hands showing their appreciation, Leslie, but like I don't see any specific questions. So in this case, what I'll do, I'll end this presentation. It is it has been recorded, so you will have access to it if you want to maybe look after some parts that were discussed, or you can reach out to myself or Leslie if you want to maybe discuss about like your specific challenges with regards to geospatial performance and GIS in general. So thank you very much for your time and attention. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.
And have a great rest of your day.